I'm a huge mindset person. Like, you want to change your life and you want to get passive income or whatever it is you're hoping real estate will do for you. It's not going to only be the strategy and the, how to actually implement the skill sets that you need to do it. It's going to be your mindset and how you have to change. It's the two together that are really going to make the change.
You found the Real Estate Law Podcast. Because real estate is more than just pretty pictures, and law goes well beyond the paperwork and courtroom arguments. If you're a real estate professional or looking to build real estate expertise, then welcome to the conversation and discover more at realestatelawpodcast.com.
Hello. Welcome to the Real Estate Law Podcast. It's another episode here with Jason Muth and Rory Gill, attorney, broker, Next Home Title Town Real Estate and Urban Village Legal in Boston. Rory, we have an esteemed guest here today. We're going to be speaking with the founder of the Women's Real Estate Network, and we're so grateful to have her on the podcast today. We'd love to learn more about her story, why she founded the Women's Real Estate Network, what she's learned along the way, some of her investments herself. And Rory, what do you think about groups like this? There's a lot of affinity groups in the real estate space where people are coming together under a common umbrella and learning among themselves.
I know from my experience, groups like this have been tremendously important to me as I built my career in law and in real estate. From starting out solo, a small bar association that was specifically meant for people who started their own practice right out of law school, the MLGBTQBA and other organizations that really have just provided people with great resources. They're building their own careers. So I'm always happy to explore the work that everybody else is doing, and I'd love to welcome Deborah onto the podcast.
Welcome, Deborah. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Rory, for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I'm great today.
Awesome. Well, great. And you're out in California. It's always a great day in California.
It is always a great day in California. Oh, except for yesterday, which was tax day.
Oh, well, you're a real estate investor. That could be a good day for you. For us,
yeah, it's not so bad. You can offset some of that, but they say it's sunshine tax out here.
Yes, exactly. Here in Massachusetts, they used to call it Taxachusetts. But, I've been here for 20 years. I just haven't had that sense. Rory, what am I missing? Do I just have good accounting or bad?
Well, we have bad branding, but whenever you look at the tax burden per capita, we tend to be about 25th out of 50. So we're not a low tax state, but we're not really leading the country in terms of high tax burden.
Yeah, California certainly has the tax burden there. Well, where are you in California?
Los Angeles. Yeah.
Oh, what part of LA? I love LA.
Burbank. Are you?
Burbank. I've been to Burbank many times. Of course, I flew into Burbank once. Yeah, I used to travel out there a lot for a couple jobs ago. Back when I worked in the media business, I had a lot of clients out in Los Angeles, so that was always a fun trip.
Yeah.
So, Deborah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, about the Women's Real Estate Network. When did you found that? Why did you found it? What have you learned about being part of a group like that?
Right. So I have been an entrepreneur for over 30 years, but I've only been in real estate about the last 14. I had an accident in my life that kind of changed my direction, which we can talk about if you want to later. But, I was in real estate and I was flipping mainly, right? And so my whole idea or my investment philosophy at that time was to flip for capital, and then I would reinvest the capital and buy and hold for cash flow, because my ultimate goal was cash flowing in, right? I'd read the little purple book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I bought into it all, and that's what I was doing. So I was flipping in California, and at that time, I was reinvesting in single-family homes in Memphis, Tennessee. There was a point at which a bunch of the big capital companies came in and started buying up a lot of the flips, and I was really, frustrated in this business. Now, anybody who's ever been in this business a while knows that frustration comes with the territory. It can be a very frustrating business, but I was very frustrated in this business. I couldn't seem to get my next flip. And I just kind of was feeling like, where are the girls? Where are my ladies around me? And it's, no difference. I'd had tons of great, education and stuff from guys, but women look at things a little differently. And I just wanted to surround myself with some ladies. So I actually ended up calling a bunch of friends who were full-time real estate investors, not all flippers. Like there's a couple women that own, storage units. There was a note woman. There was a few of us, and we all had lunch on one Sunday. And we did what women do, which is like, oh, I'm having a problem here. Does anybody have a foundation guy? Or I'm having a legal issue here. Does anybody have a good, tenant attorney? Whatever it was. And at the end of that lunch, I said, I was thinking about doing this quarterly. And somebody goes, no, let's do it, every other month. And sure enough, people started opening up their homes, and there was always wine involved. And we got together and we told each other our real estate woes, and we helped each other, and then I realized at some point after we had been meeting for a while that there is a whole lot of other women that didn't get the benefit that I was getting from meeting with all these really experienced investors. And I thought, well, maybe I start a meetup. And that's when, REN really started. I started a meetup in Los Angeles. I took women from that group, and we featured them as speakers, and they talked about their business models. And then we started gathering, right? And then a friend of mine came to one of our meetings and said, I want to do one of those in Seattle. And then another friend came, and next thing I know, we had like 11 chapters all over the US right before COVID hit. So, it's just kind of grew because there was this need to see each other succeed, really, and to help each other succeed. And I think that one of the things that I think that is really great about our group is that I think when we see other people like us, I mean, women who are mothers and wives and daughters and taking care of a lot of stuff, doing like what we want to do, it opens up our minds to like, oh, that's possible for me. I can do that. We identify with it. And I know that I've taken advantage of that. I met a woman up at our Seattle chapter who was a developer. And I went up to her and I was like, hey, you don't meet very many women developers. And she was like, well, you're a flipper, right? I used to be a flipper. Developing so much easier. And we had this long conversation, and I came back to LA, and it just opened up that opportunity for me. And the next thing you know, I'm developing fourplexes, right? And I'm like, okay, see, we all have to have our people, around us that can, open up our vision to what's possible for us. And for me, that was other women that were in this business, So yeah, it's been a really great source of inspiration and resources,
Mm-hmm.
And those first women that I had our first brunch with, they ended up becoming financial friends. Like, I've lent to them, they've lent to me, we've JV'd together. And I mean, this business is great for that, like taking other experienced people and putting together your resources and your time and your energy and making money for everyone. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You're highlighting like two things that I just really love about the real estate community. And from the outside, it's almost surprising, but everybody, first off, everybody wants to see everybody else succeed. And everybody else has, in my experience, been so open in sharing their histories, their struggles and tips to the point that it's really a welcoming community, even if we're competing against each other in some aspects of the business or certain deals. The community is very supportive of each other. But also, the community has been really great at kind of inspiring us and making us feel like what we are imagining is possible, or even prodding us to think bigger and bigger. So really happy to hear that, that's been part of your experience. And, you're also talking about a group that underrepresented in the real estate development space, and that's women. And I just kind of want to ask, pretty directly, what are some of the challenges that women in the space are facing? How has your group and how have you helped other women in the space overcome those obstacles?
Well, it's really interesting. I didn't actually bring my stats with me, but in the long run, women tend to be better investors than men. Sorry to say, like, we make a lot of really good investment decisions. And I think part of that is because, I don't know, we're kind of natural shoppers. If a woman is like really wanting something, then we know what that good price is and we can like own in on it and grab it. Except when it comes to big ticket items. And, what I found in our community is that, when it comes to big ticket items and there's a lot more involved in it, there's a lack of some confidence that they can do this and they can really make this happen. And so we have a saying in our organization that you can borrow my confidence, right? Our group is a real mix of both experienced and newbie women investors. And I think it really helps not only the newbies, but it also helps, hear another experienced investor go, you could do this. I'll give you my confidence. Go ahead. I looked at the numbers. Do it. You know what I mean? Because I think you just need that sometimes that extra encouragement to sign on the line and put in the offer and open escrow, And I think that's just a matter of how we do business, and it's a matter of gaining that confidence muscle, so to speak, so that you can lend it out once you have it.
There's so much I love about this story so far, everything you've said, the support that you're giving to other people where you founded a group with them and have multiple chapters, the confidence you're instilling upon each other, the fact that, again, we've said this many times, it's not a zero-sum game. Like, your success doesn't mean I have to fail. And I think that your group really highlights that. Women in this space, like when we go to a typical meetup, we don't see too many women. It seems to be a lot of guys that come to the meetups, and there are some women that are there. So I understand the need to maybe have your own community and your own space to be able to have those conversations that maybe you don't feel comfortable having in front of some very type A boisterous men that come to these real estate meetups, because we've all been there, right? And they're there. We don't even like speaking up sometimes at these situations where, there's somebody that's controlling the room. And it does not surprise me that women can be better investors than men in this space. Like, it just by no means does this surprise me. I've been to a number of short-term rental conferences lately, and there are a lot of women in that space, which is good to see. And in fact, we had a guest on this podcast, Natalie Palmer, who put on her own conference in Scottsdale this year, Level Up Your Listing, and it was a conference for women. And I got to meet her in person in Nashville recently at another conference. And, I get it. I get why the space is important. So I give you a lot of credit for building this. One other thing that you touched upon early on, with your career, you had an inflection point in your career where this is now kind of your second chapter of your career that you've been doing 13 years, 14 years, whatever you mentioned there, which, I would argue that's a career unto itself. You probably reinvented yourself in this second career a little later on in your life, right? Talk a little bit about that and what that was like. Like all of a sudden you have an identity, and now you have a second identity that you have to build up, which, in us meeting for the first time here, this is all we know you as. But what was it like when you had to switch that identity into this real estate world?
It was a conscious, very direct choice. And I'll tell you a little bit of the story. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time and I've had several different businesses, but I think it's about 14 years now. I had an opportunity to start over. There's probably a few people out there listening that have had that kind of opportunity, right? And
Sure.
Well, it's the death of a loved one or a divorce, or maybe for some people it was COVID. I don't know, right? Mine was a car accident. I was helping a friend and we were driving and a tire blew and the car went into the dirt and it rolled driver's side first. So I got the brunt of the impact of the car. And I was rushed to a hospital, and after stitching up my head wound, told that I had a broken neck. And that was the beginning of about a year-long healing journey for my body. And during that time, I had a lot of time to think. And, I think that's what happens when you have those opportunities in your life to kind of pivot. You think, am I really leading my best life? And I didn't have a bad life. I loved what I did. Was it really my best life? And I was like, you know what? I want to travel the world. I want to show my kids that you can do anything you set your mind to. And I want that passive income, because I need to be able to afford the life I want. And I started literally Googling passive income towards the end of my physical, ordeal. And a lot of things come up, royalties, real estate. Like, I got to get me some of that.
Yeah.
And my brother, who was really kind and taking care of me during that time, he had already been doing a bunch of Tony Robbins stuff. And he said, if you really want to change your life, maybe you should do this after you've healed. And I did. I really realized I had been running my entrepreneurial businesses as actually performing jobs for myself, right? I was an operator in my business. I wasn't the owner of my business, right? I was working it every day. I had created my own job, and I didn't know how to make that shift mindset wise. So I started doing Tony Robbins events, and man, I drank the Kool-Aid. I can't. I went to all the events, and eventually I actually started working for him. I'm a trainer for him for some of his live events. I come out and I help people make the transitions in their lives that they want. But what I learned along that way is, I'm a huge mindset person. Like, you want to change your life and you want to get passive income or whatever it is you're hoping real estate will do for you. It's not going to only be the strategy and the, how to actually implement the skill sets that you need to do it. It's going to be your mindset and how you have to change. It's the two together that are really going to make the change. And I really needed that kind of education to help me make the change into what I wanted. And I'm just really a huge proponent of self-improvement. And I'm a huge proponent in understanding your own mindset and being able to mitigate whatever fears or lacks or anything that you might think you have to achieving whatever it is that you want to achieve. And I still have coaches. I still, along my way, after being out of the rat race for quite some time now, so it's like, you still have to figure out what your next steps are. And a lot of that has to do with mindset, so, and that's why I got into real estate, and luckily I love it.
It also shows that you can't go it alone, regardless. If you physically need help from someone like your brother, an angel like him, or people in your life that you've met at meetups along the way or at Tony Robbins events, you're adding to your skill set, you're adding to your network, and you're adding to people that could help you in some way, and you can help those people in some way. We all could help people in some way that probably we don't realize. We just posted something today. I put up a new property that we just listed. This one right here. Is that the one, Rory? Did I get the right house?
You have the right hat on, yes.
All right. I just got my hats today. I'm super excited about my hats. We got a hat for each of our properties and for our business. But we just posted this today, and I heard from somebody that is looking for somewhere to host a bachelor party. Is a good friend of ours. One of the bachelors, people in the groom's party, is in a wheelchair, and we happen to have a ramp leading into the house, and we're thinking possibly this could be a place that they could host. They've had a hard time looking for it. You literally never know how you can help somebody and how people can help you if you're just sitting there trying to do it yourself. And that's one thing that you've built with WREN, in that I'm guessing teaching the people that are part of your group that you don't have to go it alone, right? There's a community of people to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can take that in like several different directions. I know for me, prior to real estate, I was kind of a lone wolf entrepreneur, right? Ran my own business, worked my own job, I did all that. And there was a point at which, when I set my, out of the rat race number, I was accumulating single families in Memphis, Tennessee. And then, hey, what do you know? My debt to income ratio was bad and I couldn't get any more. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to change what I'm doing, right? And then I switched over into development, into multifamily, right? And I mean, this is progression over years, right? I didn't jump in. I think some people do, and they're wild, crazy, and lucky for them. But, I've also realized, I'm going to have to partner more. I'm going to have to, it's not lone wolf anymore, right? It's going to be me and partners and me and other people that are all going to have it help work together. But when you actually do that, God, the brain trust that you're bringing to the party, the money resources you're bringing to the party, the experience resources that you're bringing to the party, it can be really amazing, and then everybody can, participate in something that's successful and making money. And that's a wonderful feeling, but it really takes cooperation.
So can you talk a bit about finding partners and how you've gone about doing it? Maybe some of your recommendations that you have with members of WREN and the other groups that you participate in. What are some good ways that people can partner up?
Yeah. Wow. God, there's so many ways that you can partner up. I think everything from, finding deals, if somebody's really great at finding deals and wants to, but doesn't know how to close on a deal or fund a deal, they can always be part of the closing and the funding and taking some, passive income or some cash flow from the deal. If you're a passive investor and you want to just invest in a deal, then there's always that avenue to put your money to work and be part of the partnership. If you're great at running numbers and, putting together asset managing the deals, right? Then there's always that. I think there's so many different aspects that you can be really good at, that there's a lot of different players that can participate. And I think part of the process of getting partnerships, because I've had partners that haven't worked out, right? Like, I think if you learn anything, well, if you've ever been married and divorced, that all partnerships do not end well. And so, it's also about getting to know somebody. Like, I don't rush into partnerships. You want to get to know what that person's about, a little bit about their character, what their values are, what they're looking to get out of this business partnership, right? Because that's going to tell you a lot. You're going to be intimate in your money matters, because how you run a business is all about how you're running your money. So you've got to get to know how they do that so that you can figure that out. A lot of times when I was just starting to partner, I would use investors' passive income to gap fund or to fund something, and I would learn about them. It's a great opportunity to learn about them. And when you're just doing it for flipping, you're learning about them for like a project, 6 months, right? And then you decide if you want to do something together again, right? Mm-hmm. Figure that out from there. It's better than taking on somebody that you barely know for a project that's going to last 3 to 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. So, that it's a process. I think it's a process for everyone. I mean, look at your partnership.
I know, right? Yeah. So far it works out, right, Rory? I don't know.
So far, yes.
So we've discovered a lot about our partnership also lately. I mean, Rory has his businesses, and I worked a W-2 job until last year. And then we had this business, which is called Straightforward Short-Term Rentals. We had this on the side, but now it's really a formal thing. And, last year, Rory kind of jumped into Straightforward Short-Term Rentals a bit more than I thought he would, and really helped clean up the books and get things in line, because he had a skill set that I didn't have, which was, running QuickBooks and really understanding that. I could have learned it from the ground up, but he already did it. And he did it without me even asking. And next thing I know, I have all these P&Ls that he developed for me, which was, fantastic. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe this is something you should do more for this business. I learned how to snap receipts and put it into the QuickBooks app. So I'm proud of myself for that. Yeah, I know. It's a good skill to have. But, Rory, comment a bit about how Deborah has talked about finding partners. You've worked with a lot of people in your real estate career, both on the law side and as a broker. You've worked with partnerships along the way. Like, what are some of the good ones that you've seen work out, and why?
I can talk about partnerships and everything that I've worked and advised, but I'll say something a little bit more personal to start. And that is, she's touched upon kind of the two biggest mistakes that I've made along the way in developing my businesses, particularly the early phases of the law practice. And that is, I very much went it alone, thinking that that was safer, that was smarter, that I wouldn't entangle myself with somebody else, and I would always be in charge. But the problem with going it alone is entrepreneurship can be very lonely when you're working on your own, and your brain trust is limited to one. So you're not developing and growing, and you're not as excited in growing the enterprise as you otherwise could have. And she also kind of touched upon it there. She mentioned, I hate bringing up the Kiyosaki books, but the, cash flow quadrant idea, where I just created myself a job. I was very much self-employed, and I built a job that required me to be there all the time. So those two things went hand in hand and kind of shaped the feel of the early stages of my business. But, since then, that's changed. I've had the privilege of partnering a little bit more. And as you suggested, Jason, I have had the privilege of working with some other partnerships. And it's very similar in some ways to a marriage. And I like to have people who are starting a partnership, whether it's a single property or it's a business, to actually just sit down and talk through what would happen in bad situations, what their expectations are, and draw up a formal agreement. And I don't think I've ever had to have anybody fall back on the formal written agreement that we put together for them. I think in large part because by going through that exercise, you're actually addressing the questions in advance and coming to an understanding. People think like, well, what happens if one person goes personally bankrupt? What happens in there? What happens if one person just falls upon hard times? What's going to happen there? What happens if one person gets cold feet and really wants to exit the partnership? So I think when you're forming a partnership with somebody, you really have to have thoughtful, deliberate conversation about all the eventualities and put as much as you can in writing. And hopefully you'll never have to go back and look at that document again. But I think having that that in-depth conversation is great, whether you're talking about a marriage or whether you're talking about a business partnership.
Mm-hmm. Deborah, talk a bit about the people who come to the WREN events, maybe for the first time. Do you have a lot of events throughout the country? You have a number of chapters at this point. Like, when you see a first-time person there, what is that conversation like?
Right. So we went online, like everybody else during COVID, and we're just getting back out into the market. So we've started doing that by having some kind of quarterly specialized events. And so our online events tend to have more appeal to newbies because they're just kind of getting their feet wet and getting to know our organization, right? And so those are monthly events, and we have somebody who comes and speaks about a particular business model, and so it's different every month, right? So it could be short-term rentals one month, it could be long-term rentals, it could be notes, it could be whatever, whatever that business model is. We have some women that are coming to speak about industrial properties in the next upcoming months. And so, they can come and they can get a taste of who we are and what our culture is, right? Because I've kind of explained to you, what our culture is. Like we're very much like, okay, hand in hand, and there is a genuine want to see each other succeed, and there is also some accountability that you got to do the work, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of that. Our live events are very energetic. I'm from a Tony Robbins background, so I don't know how to time manage. That stuff packed into a day. Our last live event was just in March. We had what we called SOAR, and it was about women who have gone big. So we had 8 women speakers and over $1 billion of assets managed. So apartment complexes, hotels, industrial, storage units. It was all women who were owned and operated those. And it was really amazing. Once again, like you said, you go into a regular real estate group and you're really going to see men at the front of the room. And that's because they have a lot of experience talking in front of the room because they've been in the business a long time. And women just don't get that much experience with that. And with WREN, we actually encourage our members to do that. We're like, we have a program that we encourage them to do case studies on their own projects so that they can get that experience of being in the front of the room, so that they can command a room, at some point. And so here are women who operate, $1 billion worth of assets that are, speaking in front of a room and talking about the finances of it and talking about how it impacts their family and, and how they're running things at home as well as running the business at work. There can be, and I don't think this is exclusive to women. Like if you have a family at home, you feel guilty when you're at work and not at home, and then you feel guilty when you're at home and not at work. And there's a cycle of guilt and shame that happens, and it's okay, right? Like it's okay that we can talk about it and figure out our way around that and through that, so that we can all, prosper and get what we want, in the end goal, So yeah, and it's okay to, honor yourself in wanting that.
Yeah.
So,
I want to make sure I say this correctly. You see a lot of younger guys that get into this space, and then the women, oftentimes they are their partners that they get brought along the way to start, or they, find their way in their 30s or 40s that this is something they want to do. I remember what Natalie talked once in one of her podcasts where she'd see a couple at a meetup, and the guy would be like the big, boisterous personality that's the real estate developer or the short-term rental operator, and she'd say, oh, so what do you do? I talk to the wife. Oh, I just do the design work and all the guest communication and all the bookkeeping, and I set up all the legal entities, and, I deal with the insurance company, but, just all that stuff. And she's like, well, so you're in charge of operations, like trying to empower her a little bit, saying like, that's great that he's kind of getting all this credit, but you deserve a lot of this credit as well. Do you find that there are young women that are single that come into this space in your groups? Because I haven't seen that much. I think the young women are coming along with a guy and then they're kind of lockstep, or they're coming along with their female partner and they're lockstep, or they're later on in their life and it's something that they are doing together while they already have some young kids.
You know what? It's a lot of different women. There've been women who've come into our group that are single moms that are going at real estate to make it all work for them, so that they can have time freedoms and flexibilities with their kids as they raise them and have some income coming in. And there have been at-home moms that, have a good lifestyle, but want to be able to afford great vacations for their families and want to supplement the family's income that way. I mean, it's just been such a wide range of women and such a wide age range and demographic. It really caters to everybody. One of the things that I find interesting, and I guess this is just statistics or whatever, but there are a lot of first generation American women here. I'm first generation. My parents are both born out of the United States, and I don't know if it's, you're brought up and you're feeling like, this is the land of plenty. You better take advantage of it. I don't know what it is, but there are a lot of first generations in real estate in general, but for women in particular, I find that, somebody who is been brought to this country or whose parents were born someplace else that are participating. I don't know why that is.
I don't know, maybe they see it as a way that they have to kind of form their own path and they're in charge of that, they don't have parents to lean back on necessarily. Like maybe if they're not from generational wealth, it's certainly possible.
Right. And I think you're, somebody who's come from another country to move here has got to be a bit of a risk taker,
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though I think in my family, I mean, I'm half Mexican, half Irish, right? And I think in my family, even though the motto was like, keep your head down, work hard, right? It was never shoot for the stars, right?
Yeah.
It was a hardworking, a work ethic, but it was also like two people who kind of took a chance and ended up here.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, Mexican and Irish, what an amazing combo.
Yeah.
I mean,
right?
yeah, you got Cinco de Mayo, St. Patrick's Day, double Catholic. Yes. That's great.
We party, we confess.
Oh, you need to get that on one of those like posters that you put into all like, you're in your office or in a short-term rental. That would be funny. People take pictures in front of it. T-shirts, right? There's your new business idea. Let's get to our final questions that we ask of all of our guests on the podcast. We can wrap things up a little bit and you could tell everyone how they can get involved with the Women's Real Estate Network. So these 3 questions are very simple. They are not gotcha questions. They are just a way to get to know you a little bit better and to wrap up the interview.
I'll let everybody get to know me better.
We got to know you very, very well, but yes, these might be like, a total aside. First question, if you can get on stage and talk for half an hour about any subject in the world with zero preparation, what would that be?
It would be mindset. It would be understanding what's possible for people. Like, I think sometimes that people don't understand that, they sit back and think, I wish I had, or I wish I could. And I want to say, you can. That's what I want to say, So it would all be about mindset and how it can trip us up and how we can navigate around it.
I've heard a lot about mindset lately. A lot of the people that are in the mastermind that I'm in talk about mindset, even people that are just in local real estate groups. I just had lunch with somebody a couple of days ago and he was talking about mindset. I never really thought about mindset during my career, during my actual working for another company career. I think it's the kind of thing that we think about when we're either tired of that career or making that transition. And it's a very important conversation to have internally. It's important to have with our spouses and our partners and friends as well. But, I don't discount that word mindset by any means. It's something that more people should really think through when they have the chance to kind of get their mind in the right space.
They have the life desire.
Yeah, like one thing I've thought about, not to get grim or anything, and you certainly had a situation happen in your life that, was, you almost lost your life in a car accident, but, you start counting down the years you have left, right? Like from average life expectancy. Like, we're all going to be in the ground at some point, right? So,
no one gets out alive.
No one does, right? And then, we're all guilty. I was raised Catholic too. So, we're guilty the whole way on earth, and then, no one gets out alive. You look at the amount of summers that you have left and you want to make the best of those summers, right? And when you're 20, you don't think about that. When you're 40, you think about it a little bit more. And you say, okay, well, how do I want to spend the rest of my time? Second question, that you might have answered this one already, but it's tell us something that happened early in your life or career that impacts the way that you're working today.
I would have to go back to the accident that happened. I look at that time now and I think it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call. I'm really happy to have heard it. Because I got the opportunity to change things. And I think along with the opportunity comes the motivation, right? Like, oh, I don't want to go back there now. Now I have a new idea of what my life can be, and I want to make that happen, right?
Yeah.
So it was that opportunity. So yeah, I'd have to go to there.
Yeah, I could have
Okay,
that word
sorry.
probably.
It was having kids. It was
How many kids do you have?
two.
2. Okay. Final question. It's of course, best day of your life, have the kids. Yeah. Tell us what you're listening to or reading or watching these days. Anything in the world.
Yeah. Okay. So I just picked up Never Eat Dinner Alone. It's supposed to be a great networking book. I literally just cracked it open. I haven't even read it yet, so I'm looking forward to reading that. Just because I think that's a great concept. Never eat dinner alone. We should be in community with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm listening to, Pink's greatest hits right now. Like, I don't know why I'm so into her lately. She's like a rebel and
Yeah.
this energy, and I don't know.
She just put out a new album recently also.
Yeah, I'm still in the greatest hits.
Have you seen her in concert?
No, but I want to see her do all that aerial work.
Yeah.
That looks fascinating to me. So yeah, probably no, great stretch that I like a woman who is bold and thinks out of the box, right?
Why wouldn't you? I mean, like, I was just telling Rory about it. Actually, Misunderstood came out over 20 years ago. It came out like in 2001 or 2002. And that album transformed her because I actually saw Pink live back in the late 90s, back when I worked in the radio world. And she was part of these like multi-package festival concerts that would be these outdoor sheds where she'd, get 20 minutes to play in front of the band that was setting up when the curtain was down, where she'd be singing, on top of a track before she was really what she's become. And then when, Misunderstood came out, like, she kind of made a statement and said, I'm not that R&B girl, I'm this instead. And then it just took off afterward. And I have not seen her with the Acrobatics, but she's touring this year. I mean, I think that, when this podcast comes out, it'll just be a couple months until I think she's coming back to Fenway Park, I believe, here in Boston. So I'm sure she's coming to LA.
Yeah, I'd love to see her. I think she'd be really like a kick in person,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully you can make your way to a Pink concert at some point this year or in the future. So, Deborah, tell everybody where they could learn more about you and get linked up with WREN if they want to learn more about the Women's Real Estate Network.
Yeah. So WREN is WREN, WREN, inspires.com. If you're looking to look at our website, and we have a calendar of events there. And we're WREN Inspires on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We're WREN Inspires everywhere. And if you're looking to connect with me personally, it's just DeborahRazo.com, and I'd be happy to connect with you, schedule a call with me or whatever you need, and we can go from there. Yeah.
All right. That sounds great. Rory, where can people get a hold of you?
You can find me either through my real estate brokerage, that's Next Home Titletown, nexthometitletown.com, or my law practice, Urban Village Legal, that's urbanvillagelegal.com.
All right. Thank you. And if you want to get a hold of me, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast or have comments, questions for me, for Deborah, for any of us, you could find me, Jason, at nexthometitletown.com. That's it. That's a wrap. That's another episode. Deborah, it's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit better. We wish you the best with Women's Real Estate Network and all your investments. So thank you so much for being part of this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been great getting to know you guys too.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again down the line after you've seen Pink.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this, we read all your comments, so please leave a comment if you want to give us a 5-star review. We love 5-star reviews and nothing less. Thank you so much for listening or watching us. We'll see you next time.
This has been the Real Estate Law Podcast. Because real estate is more than just pretty pictures, and law goes well beyond the paperwork and courtroom arguments. We're powered by Next Home Titletown, Greater Boston's progressive real estate brokerage. More at nexthometitletown.com. And Urban Village Legal, Massachusetts Real Estate Counsel, serving savvy property owners, lenders, and investors. More at urbanvillagelegal.com. Today's conversation was not legal advice, but we hope you found it entertaining and informative. Discover more at realestatelawpodcast.com. Thank you for listening.